Welcome to the Coach Dave Love Podcast with NBA shooting coach Dave Love and your host, Matt Robertson. Exploring the cutting edge of evidence-based shooting development in basketball today. From shooting form to skill acquisition to shot metrics. This is the Coach Dave Love Podcast.
Welcome to the Coach Dave Love Podcast. I'm Dave Love, NBA shooting coach, with my faithful host slash friend slash the voice of the people, Matthew Robertson. Matthew, how are you?
Good day. The voice of the people. It's the greatest nickname I've ever had. I'm good. How are you making out?
I'm well. We were just discussing your lack of sleep off air, and I sympathize with you, but I also think those were kind of good times. I think you'll look back at them with fondness as an experienced dad to a new dad.
You are the third person to tell me that in the last week. And in this moment, not a lot for me to look back on fondly.
Oh, yeah.
However,
in the moment, it's garbage.
However, I will say he's starting to smile and laugh a little bit right now at 6 weeks, which is very cool. And Sunday morning, my wife B got him up and running, up and going. She of the stiff high five from episode 3. Anyway, she got him up and going, and she let me sleep a little bit. I came out to see him, and it was the first time I'd seen him that morning, and he went like the most excited he's ever been for anything, and that was pretty cool.
Now amplify that with a dad, or like a hug, or a reach for your hand, and like that's what you have in front of you in the next 3 years, and it just gets better and better from there. But this is not a parenting podcast. We're a basketball podcast, so we'll pivot quickly. Now people are probably wondering, like, this is a little different. If you've listened to episodes 1 through 10, we're changing things up a little bit. I'm taking the lead a little bit more on this one, and we're going to see how this goes. We're going to play with a few different things. One of the things that we need to kind of apologize for, episode 9 audio, not so good. Yeah,
thumbs down fart sound is the emoji or the GIF that sound was.
So we've done a test to make sure that this one should be better, and we think it will. But that's where we are right now. We're making some mistakes, and if you look at Steph Curry's game logs, the career 42% 3-point shooter is not consistently going 4 for 9. There are some 1 for 7 games in there, and so we had an 0 for 9 last game, but we're bouncing back.
We went over. We're bouncing back. I will say, as a testament to your basketball knowledge and your delivery, the podcast was still digestible, which means like maybe I'm not as useful as I like to think I am. So kudos to you. Good job by you for carrying the pod with my muffled voice.
Yeah, it wasn't great, but you know what? We're gonna get up. There's gonna be we have a long career, and so one bad game, we're not gonna sweat it. We're just gonna move on and try to get better. So,
short memory.
In the past, we've always talked about being transparent with the listeners. In the past, I've written the show notes and given you some guidance on like questions that you could potentially ask. Confirm or deny, on this episode, you are going in completely blind.
I've got my cup of David's tea, and that is what I have going into this episode.
You don't know the topic. You don't know what questions could be asked. You know nothing.
Zilch.
Zilch. Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about why righties tend to miss to the left. We're going to get into a super technical episode of, hey, coach, for those people that ask the question like, hey, coach, I've got this problem. What might be causing me to have this problem? Well, we'll go through some possible solutions for players, for coaches, and for trainers, and just talk about some things. How do you feel about this?
I feel great. I do want to know. I know you took video of me shooting the basketball in the summertime, and as a right-hander, I may have missed all of them left, as I did not shoot very well. Is that the impetus for the episode? No. Okay. Carry on.
No. Yes, but no. Yes, in the sense that it's a common thing. Like, it's like, why did I pick this one? It came down to, it was going to be, why do people miss short, or why do people miss left? Because those are probably the two most common things. Righties don't tend to have their overwhelming majority of their misses be to the right. It can happen, but it's far more common that righties are going to have their most common miss to the left. So let's start with this. This isn't necessarily like, I don't want you to listen to this and go out to a rim and you watch a player shoot and they miss their first shot to the left, and you go, oh, perfect, I'm going to go changing all of these things. This is over the course of 100 shots. If they miss 30 of them offline, and 22 of those 30 were to the left and 8 were to the right, and the big misses were to the left, that's the people that we're talking about. Okay, so you with me on that one?
Yeah, gotcha. Larger sample size than one shot, because I know that instinct. You see it. It's the thing where you hear a word for the first time and you start to see it everywhere. So chart the shots. Don't just see it and go, oh yeah, missing left.
Let's discuss this for a quick moment. How do you chart shots? I know what I tend to do in a workout, and people are probably going to hear you say chart shots and think like, "Ooh, wait a second, what does that mean?" Do you have anything you do? I've got an idea, but let's hear from you first.
Yeah, I'm pretty classic, old school, form shooting close to the hoop, makes and misses, and that's the charting of the shots. In game, we do passes per possession, outcome of possession, that kind of charting shots. But in workouts, I'm a make miss guy, and I haven't deviated from that, unfortunately, which means I'm a dinosaur. So thanks for that.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say dinosaur. My elaborate algorithm is not much more complicated than yours. It's me watching and then just like making a mental note. That one left. That was straight. That was straight. That went left. That's 2 left, no right. That one left. 3 left, no right. And like just kind of keeping track in my head, like I'm watching the flight of the ball, how it's spinning, how it's leaving their hand, looking for clues, and then saying, this might be a guy that misses left more than right, right more than left, and then I'll start to chart in unscientifically in my head to see if that is in fact confirmed, and then just really doing this over the course of several days before. Unless the evidence is obvious that I'm not necessarily even going by the first day necessarily.
So when you talk about right-handers missing left, is there generally like a single habit that's kind of tied to this? And I don't want to step on this again for how you kind of plan this out, but is there generally a single habit tied to this, or is it sort of a buildup of things? Or a spectrum
Well, I've
of
got
things?
a list of 4, and I'm not saying those are the only 4, but they're by far, in my opinion, the most common 4. So these 4 will make up 90% of people, I think, and then one of them is probably 60% of people. So in a way, yeah, there is kind of a most common.
And so you watching these guys and like day 3, you're like, okay, there's a definite pattern here. Have you already started looking for these 4 items, or the one in particular, just as a quick like reference for yourself?
Yeah, it's a bit of a combination of starting with the habits that I'm seeing, and starting with the results that I'm seeing. And so you're constantly, I'm watching their body and how their body is shooting the basketball, and I'm forming an opinion from that that will cue me to kind of watch their shot. Then I'm watching the results of their shot, and the results of that are cueing me to look for different things with the body, and you're kind of back and forth, bouncing back and forth until you kind of really zero in on, okay, what is meaningful here? What information is meaningful and impactful, and support each other, and usually that. By the end of the first workout, I'll have really strong opinions, and then be confirming over the next couple of workouts whether that was that just a bad day, or was that is this consistently happening over time. So
it is always interesting to hear you talk about this, and I am excited to kind of jump into the meat of this. But like even last episode, you mentioned you had told a Channing Frye story, and you were talking about spine angle specifically going right. And as just your average guy, it always, or as a reasonable basketball knowledge person, the level of specificity that you get into always impresses me, because that's it's the classic baseball stat filter where you're like, if you look at him on night games on Wednesdays in the month of July, he's the best hitter ever. And you're like, going right without a dribble, spine angle to, fading away. That's when the spine angle gets out of whack. And I really enjoy that level of specificity.
Well, I think that's why we're friends, is we both enjoy that. And that's the difference between an amateur and somebody that's been doing this now for a couple of decades at a reasonably high level. So, shall we dive into reason number? Should I start with the most common and work my way to the least, or should I start with the least and work my? I'll let the voice of the people decide this one.
The people want the most common first. Just give them what they want.
Yeah, okay. So most common by far is, let me start that again so we can get a nice clean clip for the podcast promotion.
I like it.
Which is something that I'm working on. We're trying to be transparent. By far the most common, I'm going to start again so that we don't get your laughter in the background. The people now listening to the podcast are going to be able to say, like, and go to my Twitter and say, yeah, there's the clip, without the ridiculous laughter that preceded it. By far the most common habit that leads to right-handed shooters missing to the left is their shooting hand being under the right side of the basketball. If your shooting hand, which is going to be what is providing the most energy to the basketball, is underneath the right side of the basketball, it will be pushing the right side more than the left, which will cause the ball to go to the left, unless acted on by another force. And so that by far is the most common habit. It's why we coaches have to talk about getting your elbow in, is that elbow adjusts the hand position and the hand angle on the ball to make sure that the middle of the hand gets underneath the center of the basketball by the set point and the beginning of the shooting motion. You with me so far?
That's the clip.
That's the clip. I feel like, yeah,
that's the clip.
And this is like promotional gold now. So, voice of the people, you got any follow-up questions to this?
No, this is great. As I'm sort of following along with my body as you go, when you talk about other forces, are you referring to like thumb flick city or like two-hand look? Is that sort of the other force you're looking at?
That's by far the most common. That if your shooting hand is pushing the right side of the ball, it's going to go to the left, and your body and your brain over time, at probably a young age, is going to see that evidence or feel that potentially happening and figure out how to compensate. And the most common compensation is that people start to push with their guide hand, pushing the left side of the ball with their guide hand, which will push it back to the right. Now, hoping those two forces cancel each other out and the ball goes straight. And that's why I always say to people, if you want to fix your guide hand issue, if you know you thumb flick and you want to get better at reducing that negative energy, then you should be fixing your shooting hand first. If you try and fix your guide hand first and get that off the basketball, all you're going to do is expose the fact that your shooting hand is pushing the ball to the left.
Okay, I'm with you. I find yeah. Sorry, go.
The next, we got a delay. So the next most common habit causing right-handed shooters to miss to the left would be the shooting hand is underneath the middle of the ball, but their shooting hand is pushing to the left. So it's on the right spot in the ball, but it's now pushing across the ball. And this is something that I actually do, that I've got limited shoulder mobility historically, and especially these days. And so I get underneath the middle of the ball, but my hand is drifting to the left as I shoot, and it tends to come off my index finger and my middle fingers, or my middle finger and my ring finger is my bad miss. And so my body, I'm trying to pull the ball back to the left, and sometimes I overcook it and the ball goes left. So it's not just where your hand is on the ball; it's also what direction is your hand pushing, and they can go hand in hand, but they don't always.
How much more common is the pushing of the right side of the ball? Because I feel like I've seen a lot of that. Just again, as you're talking, I'm kind of thinking about this, and I've seen way less of this, like up until the last point where we're in a good position, and then kind of snap across the ball. Is that significantly more common? Does it make, do you see a lot of that?
Shooting hand underneath the right side of the ball is significantly more common than pushing to the left. But it does happen, and when we get into shot metrics, we can talk about how that changes the spin of the ball, an indicator that we're effectively shooting a curved ball, even though the ball isn't curving.
So you're saying the spin is going to be different when I'm shooting under the right side of the ball versus when I'm shooting from the middle of the ball to the left. That's going to change the spin in different ways.
Yeah, one of them creates more EY rotation. One of them creates more EZ rotation. For baseball people that are, I believe baseball uses tilt and gyro as their expressions. For EY would be a tilt to the ball, and then a gyro spin would be more easy. But these are not things that basketball people are talking about yet. So basketball people are going to listen to me and go, what the hell is he talking about? So, but 5 years from now, once we've got several hundred episodes in the books, hopefully people will have a better understanding of what we're talking about here now.
I like it.
All right. So number 3, and this, now that I think about it, maybe this should have been the second item, but I kind of went the 2 hand and then the 2 body. So another common cause of righties missing to the left is that their body is moving to the left with no compensation from the shooting hand or their guide hand. So a common example of how your body could move to the left would be you turn your feet to the left, or you lean to the left. That is not to say, so people who are pro-turn, don't start hating on me, suggesting that, listing all the people who turn their feet when they shoot. I'm also aware. But to say that you should always turn your feet is just as wrong as saying you should never turn we have to be more aware of just the direction of the feet. We have to be aware of the direction of the energy created. And you can turn your feet and still create mostly positive energy. in which case the ball is not going to go to the left. But if you turn your feet to the left and you jump significantly in that direction, then your center of gravity will be moving to the left while you're trying to shoot the ball straight, and there's a chance you're going to miss left, and if you do, it probably came from your feet. So stop thinking in black and white, saying that that turning your feet is always right or never right, or having your feet at the target is always wrong or never wrong. It's more complex, and there's more gray area than just those four ideas. And be aware of the direction of the energy that your body is creating.
I mostly want to talk about Morris Peterson in this moment as he was facing the sideline at all times, but that's a different conversation. Was
he a lefty?
I think he was a lefty, and that's what I was in my head as you were talking of but right feet facing like directly to the side, like
right.
Also was for the time, which now actually going back through and looking at the percentages would be really interesting. Because for the time, he was considered a pretty good 3-point shooter. And as I think about it, I'm like, I bet he was like a 34% 3-point shooter. But that was 20 odd years ago. This particular topic resonates with me a lot because I was a left drifter. So feet facing the hoop, slightly staggered. And upon release, I would land 3 inches to the left or 2 inches to the left every single time. And when I broke down the video, my right knee was bending inward and creating more force, and never really considered that I was missing left more than right. But now that I think about it, of course that's the case. I'm drifting, like I'm fading a little bit on every shot, although spine angle is good. But energy pushing me this way is obviously going to make the ball also go this way.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of these compensations that you can create. Probably the most obvious, common occurrence of this cause and effect is, yes, a lot of people point their feet to the left when they shoot. If you jump straight up and down, it's not very much negative energy. You can get away with it. Most people, when they turn their feet to the left, will tend to jump in the direction that their feet are pointed. If they jump to the left, they're creating energy to the left, and they need to create more energy to the right with some other body part to compensate. And that what most people do is they release through, and they get the middle of their hand, they get the middle finger underneath the center of the ball, which means they have more of their hand over on the left side of the ball, which will push the ball to the right. So you've got your hand pushing slightly right and your body pushing slightly left. And this is why people say, like, well, Steph Curry releases off his index or his middle finger. We should be teaching off the middle finger. And no, that is how he does it. He cancels out two opposing forces, and we will always have opposing forces. Nobody's going to have a perfectly positive shot. We would just like them to be as small as possible and be in control of the little flaws that we do have. So yes, he turns his feet to the left on 3-point shots, creates a little energy with his lower body to the left. His hand rotates through, shooting a slight curve ball, pushing the ball to the right. Those two things cancel out. They're reasonably small. And I think even a tiny little thumb flick pushing the left side of the ball with the guide hand, which would push it a little bit more to the right, they're reasonably small compared to the youth player that would say, well, Steph Curry has a thumb flick and I have a thumb flick, therefore my thumb flick isn't bad. And Steph Curry's is a thumb moving a tiny little bit, pushing the smallest amount possible, and theirs is their guide hand full on pushing equally. Those are not the two. Those are not mutual, or those are not identical ideas. They're in the same family, but one's a drizzle and the other is a torrential downpour or a tidal wave landing on top of you.
One of my favorite things that we've done in this run of 10 or 11 pods, whatever it is now, is when we did your shooting non-negotiables pod. Your non-negotiables are so specifically worded to allow for those people that don't fit into that black and white mold. When you're talking about, and I actually, this is a tangent on a tangent. Okay, let's run. So I watched a clip this week of Alpert and Şengün talking to JJ Redick, and JJ said, why do you shoot a 1 foot leaning shot when there's nobody on you from 5 feet? And he replied, this is just how I feel balanced in this shot, which is a ridiculous thing for me to think about. But for him, that's his balance. And when I think about your non-negotiables, so I'm coming back down the ladder towards the pod right now, you said to be as balanced as possible, whatever that looks like for that player. And so in those moments, like, you've left room in your non-negotiables for the outliers that have feet pointed to the left but jump straight up and down, and have a thumb flick but have a really good opposing force mechanism. That's really cool.
Right,
Anyway, I know that's a tangent on a tangent, but I really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, and thank you for saying that, because the appropriate let me start again. This basically comes back to push the middle of the ball with the middle of your hand, or push both sides of the ball evenly is how I'm starting to phrase it now. And you can push both sides of the ball evenly by pushing one side with one hand and one side with the other. I just know it's harder to do, but it's possible. And Steph is 52-48, pushing with, like, he would be like 98-2, where he pushes mostly with his shooting hand and a tiny little bit with his guide hand. And that's not the same as the young child that pushes 60-40. Harder to control those two variables.
So I should start trying to shoot just a little bit with my guide hand, right? Yeah, okay. I got it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Thank you.
Voice of the people, baby.
Yeah. You do an excellent job of listening to the last 5 words.
All right, sorry. I appreciate it. Continue on. What's number 4 for me, Dave? What's the fourth? What's the rarest cause? Or sorry, go ahead.
Let's do a quick little recap, and then we forgot we haven't taken a commercial break here, so we might only do one commercial break this time, which will be perfect. But okay, so the most common reason people miss to the left is right-handed shooters, shooting hand underneath the right side of the ball. Second most common reason is going to be the shooting hands underneath the middle of the ball, but it's pushing to the left. Third most common reason, not necessarily in order, is going to be your body moving to the left as you shoot. And so we'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the fourth most common reason.
Hey there, basketball fans. I'm NBA shooting coach Dave Love, and I've got exciting news just for you. Introducing my exclusive, free basketball shooting newsletter. It's packed with insights and techniques straight from the hardwood. Have you ever wondered how NBA players improve their shots? Or how you could get to the next level, whether you're a college player, a coach, or a budding youth player? My newsletter brings all this and more directly to your inbox. Each edition is a deep dive into the world of basketball shooting. I'll share some of the tips and ideas that I use with my NBA clients, tailored for every level of the game. But wait, there's more. Subscribers receive exclusive monthly discounts on my online products. From training videos to personalized coaching sessions, you'll get it all for a fraction of the price. And the best part of all, it's absolutely free to join. So what are you waiting for? Elevate your game and join a community of passionate players and coaches from around the globe. Signing up is easy. Just visit CoachDaveLove.com.
All right, Matt, we're back. How do you feel about this format of the show? I think we have some things to polish, but I think this is something that we might have to go with.
Two pieces. One, great tease on the way in. I've never done that before, so great tease on the way into commercial break about the next thing we're going to talk about. So excellent. Good job by you. Secondly, I'm sweating more just because I don't really know what's coming, and I'm on it. I'm stressed, but it's good. It's eustress, as the psych kids would say, right? So this is good. I could handle this.
Oh, this leads me into one of my favorite stories. So we're gonna pause for the fourth one. I'm not a big Bruce Springsteen fan, but I have tremendous respect for him. That even as an 80-year-old man, or however old he's got to be, he's definitely over 70. I think might be in his 80s. You're gonna look for this? Well, okay, perfect, thank you. He still sells out stadiums, and everybody says you have to see Bruce Springsteen in concert before he's no longer doing concert. How old?
74.
74. One of the things that he apparently does is every concert, he says to his band, there's like a song that they've never rehearsed before. He just puts it on the playlist. We're playing this song. And people are going to be like, I don't even know that. Some people in the band don't know what the song is, don't know how to play it, they don't know. And his rule is just like, figure out a way to add value. And so I'm kind of putting you in that position where it's like, okay, you don't know what's coming up, but figure out a way to add value, and you're doing a great job.
Listen, in any way that you can compare yourself to Bruce Springsteen at any forum, I'm in favor of. So, Bruce, just like conduct on, fire away. I'm really enjoying this.
Okay, so number 4 for how people will tend to miss left as right-handed shooters will be their body turning to the left. And in my mind, this is different than your body creating energy. It's in the same family, but it's different. So you can turn your feet to the left and jump to the left, or you can start with your feet pointed one direction and rotate your body. In one of them, your center of gravity is moving to the left. In the other, your center of gravity is staying in place but rotating. And so those are two different things in my mind. And again, could potentially cause somebody to miss as to the left as a right-hander, or more likely require them to create a compensating force in the opposite direction to try and keep the ball straight.
Can we talk about cause and effect of this one in particular?
Sure. Do you have something more specific?
I'm curious because I'm thinking of the cause, what would cause my body to be rotating to the right. And it's more than just me moving to the right, or sorry, my body rotating left, me moving to the right and trying to shoot a shot and squaring my shoulders in the middle of that. Have you seen anybody like shooting a square shot and they're sort of pushing and turning as they shoot? Is that a situation you see, or is it mostly as I'm moving to the right and squaring as I move?
It's both. And okay. I think two different groups do one of those more. So the group that tend to do it to compensate for the situation will be the older, more established group that the defense is good. They don't have a chance to always get square. And so they have to square in the air, and that causes that rotation of their body through. That they probably have they've been going right. They didn't get square. They've got a square up in the air. They end up overcompensating and rotating their hips through, finishing aiming left. The other group is the younger group who do it as a power generation move. And I always give the example that it's like a discus thrower. And like, why do discus throwers spin around before throwing the discus is to generate more power. But a discus thrower has 90 degrees worth of target. They're just like, land it anywhere between the third base foul pole and the first base foul pole, and we're good. We've got a degree of wiggle room, and so discus throwing is 100% accuracy, or 99% accuracy, or 99% power, 1% accuracy. Basketball's like 90% accuracy, 10% power. And so we can't always sacrifice accuracy to get more power. We eventually have to start to sacrifice power to get accuracy, especially as a player grows and finds more natural, positive power. They can begin to use that, limit the habitual negative power so that they become more accurate. When I say that, does that make sense? The difference
it
between...
makes sense. It does make sense to me. And can I get you, for the clip, can I get you to say it in a more concise way? Because I understand what you're saying, but we've also talked about this a bunch, which gives me context. Give me the clip that explains this in a concise way.
So a young player, like I'm talking like, let's go 11 years old. That 11-year-old player will need to generate negative power that is flowing any direction except for at the hoop, just to get enough power given to the basketball to get the ball to cover the distance they need. They're not strong enough. But as they get older, they become stronger. They're able to create more positive energy naturally. So they need to be simplifying their habits. Like as they naturally create more positive power, they need to be creating better habits that reduce the negative energy. Otherwise, they're not taking advantage of the physical growth that they're going to naturally come by. Was that even close to more concise?
It was. It was. I have two notes about your initial explanation. The first is I would have gone with shot put, because that's more of a motion that triggers with me with how young players shoot the ball. And the cross-sport analogy of discus throwing in baseball, and I understood completely what you were saying, but cross-sport analogy is a tough one to pull off. So good job by you. That's 3 good jobs by you, which means you're crushing it right now. You should just host your own podcast.
My wife is the queen of mixing metaphors, which I guess is what I did. She'll say that like I have to really concentrate to make sure that I can do what she does, and she does it naturally. She'll say, I'm a fine oiled machine. And I'm like, do you mean you're a fine-tuned machine or you're a well-oiled machine? But you're not a fine oiled. And she can take two expressions and mix them perfectly and seamlessly.
I hope you keep a record of those for a rainy day. Just keep them for the book. That's it's a great one.
Perfect. So how did we do? We got 4 things that righties tend to do to cause them to miss left. Any follow-up questions on your part?
I do. So how far are we into this, by the way? What's the time frame? What are we at right now?
We're 37 minutes plus opening and commercial, so we'll call it 40.
Can we dig into the most common issue that causes right-handed shooters to miss left and talk about a few potential fixes? Do we have enough time to do that? Because that's something that's really interesting to me.
I feel like we're obligated to do that. That's like, I don't want to just tell you what the problem is and then never teach you how to fix it. That would make me a jerk. So,
okay. I didn't know if that was a part 2, but that's what I'm really interested in, to be honest.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's call back to one of the previous podcasts where we talked about identify, isolate, and layer. So we've just identified that the player misses to the left, and then in watching for a little while, we've deduced that they're missing left because their shooting hand is not underneath the middle of the ball; it's underneath the right side of the ball. We've just identified. Okay. So now I want to isolate. I want to hold accountable in as easy a situation as I need to actually get in the middle of my hand underneath the center of the basketball. So let's break down a couple of different things here. What is the middle of our hand? For most players, and if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, go to YouTube, just mark that around the 41-minute mark. You need to kind of jump over to YouTube and watch the video. I'm taking my hand and I'm holding an imaginary basketball in my shooting hand with my shooting hand thumb comfortably spread out. When most people grip the ball like this, which is how I think we should be, comfortably wide, the distance from their index finger to their tip of their thumb will be about the same as index finger to the tip of their finger. This is not universally true, but this is fairly accurate for most people. The index finger, as long as that thumb is spread out, is the middle of most people's grip. Okay? Not everybody. Some people are built slightly differently, but that's a safe assumption to make. So we need the index finger, the pointer finger, to be underneath the middle of the ball at the beginning of the shooting motion, which I believe is the set point, that position where the ball has changed direction, it's stopped moving backwards, and is now moving up and forward in hopefully a straight line from that set point. That's when I need the shooting hand to be the middle of the shooting hand to be underneath the middle of the basketball. So I'm going to create a drill. I would use, if you're familiar with my form shooting drills, you can go back and listen to that podcast. I would use isolation drill to hold accountable to just getting comfortable with what does this set point feel like, with high accountability to that small little habit. Then I'd progress through ABC and slow to quick, just learning to feel what it feels like to have the pointer finger underneath the middle of the basketball at the beginning of the shooting motion. So that would be how I would isolate it. And then from there, I would start to layer by adding in movement and adding in catches and dribbles and defenders and decisions.
Makes sense to me. And having seen isolation drill in action and having practiced using isolation drill, so fun little note that given my new dad status, holding and feeding the baby to the right or to my left, bottle right hand, I've developed this just feel it with me. I've developed this these sets of muscles or whatever, and my jump shot is actually a mess, and I'm pushing the ball to the right, and I am 100% sure it has to do with my posture. 5 times a day feeding this child who weighs 11 pounds. And so to correct that, I went back to isolation drill because I don't know if my hand was moving up at release or if I was including my guide hand in the ball. Regardless, when talking about having one side of the ball, one side of your hand shooting one side of the ball more than the other, isolation drill was such a perfect reset for me to make sure I'm under the middle of the basketball with the middle of my hand and getting my guide hand off the basketball. So it makes sense that this is a great fix for your player that is shooting the right side of the basketball more than the left side. I think that makes perfect sense to me.
This progression of form shooting drills, isolation drill, ABC, slow to quick, I use with 99% of players that I work with. And because they catch so many habits, as long as we're doing them with the accountability that's required, and just remember that form shooting does not mean, and this isn't a reminder to you, I know that you know, but anybody that's new to the podcast, form shooting does not mean just shooting slowly close to the rim. The only reason that we isolate things is so that we have a chance to be highly accountable to specific habits. And if you're simplifying something but not being accountable to a habit, then you're just making your practice easy for no reason at all, and you're kind of wasting your time.
It's an assault on my character every time, but you are right. Again, if you've been with us in this journey, every time this idea comes up, it hurts my feelings only because as a player, I did this every single day. And I was like, oh yeah, this works. You're right. It's not the best way. It is a way. It's not the best way. It's not halfway to the best way.
Yeah, it's a tool to be used in a specific situation, and I use that tool 5% of the time.
Yeah.
But my goal is to move on with still some accountability to a much harder, much more task or game representative kind of drill as quickly as I possibly can. And that one of these days we'll do an episode like how people. Let me phrase it more in a more positive way. Mistakes that we make when doing form shooting. The common mistakes we make when doing form shooting. That'll probably end up being a podcast. And I mean, that's going to bring in the people, Matthew. The people are getting like the hundreds of thousands of listens to that one. That people are going to talk about it.
I was going to go crazy with hundreds of dozens, but you really stepped it up there. What an escalation.
We haven't done really. I feel like we're at the end of the episode. We haven't really done a State of the Union in a while. Do you want to talk about? Because I know, like, I listened to the Adam Carolla podcast from episode 1 on day 1, and I loved it when he would update on like, how's it going? And we've joked through the first couple of episodes about having literally tens of people listening, and then dozens of people listening, and then tens of dozens, and then hundreds. Now I've been rambling. I kind of just have to say we're up to like we're getting 300 people. Massive numbers? No. But watching the graph go up every single episode, where we haven't really tried to promote it too much. We're up to consistently 300 people listening, and that's in early March. How do you feel?
Listen, if 300 people could hold the gap in the mountains with Gerard Butler, 300 people can prop up this podcast, baby. That's how I feel. That's the dad cheese you're here for, and I'm here for it.
we kind of committed to doing this for at least a year, and then seeing what comes of it. I'm thrilled with the number of people that have reached out to you to just say, hey, listen to the pod. And then the people start, like, people that I haven't talked to in 6 months or a year, to say, hey, the podcast is great. Let me see if I can find it here. I got a really nice email from somebody, from Mark. And he says, I appreciate your approach and candor that you and Chris Oliver bring. I believe that Chris Oliver and your podcast are the two best basketball podcasts currently available.
Is that Jablonski?
No, completely different Mark.
Different Mark. Yeah. Shout out to Mark Jablonski.
And I won't try and Ayun. So shout out to Mark this Mark as well. Mark with a C.
This Mark.
And yeah, I'll have to reply to his email today now that I've read it on the podcast. But so my question was going to be, what's your goal for the end of 2024? We're at literally 300 people per episode. How many people do you hope we're listening by the end of 2024?
The end of 24, it would be incredible if we had 2,000 people per episode. And personally, again, the numbers don't really matter. I appreciate that people appreciate the value you bring, and I think you have so much value to bring to everybody's practice, from mini coach to an AAU, high level coach, D1, NBA, whatever. I think you bring a lot of value to anybody and can hit them where they're at. So that's part one. I just want to keep having fun with this, which has been the number one thing for me. And it has filled that bucket for me. And when people ask, like, outside of, your normal coaching and outside of your work and whatever, what's the best thing you're doing? And I'm like, man, this is the best thing I'm doing. I'm having so much fun. And that's my goal for 2024. And if it's what the people want, then it's what the people want, and I'll give it to them.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Because you're the voice of the people.
Put a wrap on it. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming out. Coach Dave Love, where can the people find you if they're looking to get in touch?
Coach Dave Love on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And remember, the podcast is on YouTube. So if we reference something physical, you can come and watch the video on my YouTube channel, and then subscribe to my newsletter, CoachDaveLove.com. I've got like a monthly sale that I do on some of my online products that if you've heard the commercials, if you don't fast forward through the commercials, then you're aware of the let's call a spade. People are they're fast forwarding through that, but they figured out that is a 2-clicker. And I'm not mad at them, but I slipped one in here and just let you know that, I've got a monthly sale on my podcast. Go to CoachDaveLove.com. I'll send you a boatload of free information and give you a discount every month of uncertain stuff. So where do people find you?
Tough to fast forward the organic commercial. I love that. You can find me on LinkedIn, and that's about it. I still promise I'm going to get there. But I just wanted to say, you've hosted this episode. Why don't you close us out? Take us away.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Coach Dave Love Podcast. To stay up to date with our future episodes, please remember to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. Don't forget to sign up for Coach Love's free shooting newsletter on CoachDaveLove.com, and be sure to follow him on social media. You can find him at Coach Dave Love.